Technically advanced aircraft, are they safer or more dangerous? Well, first off, what is a technically advanced aircraft? A technically advanced aircraft must have all the following according to the FAA. It must have a primary flight display with primary instruments, a multifunction display with a GPS and moving map, and a working 2-axis autopilot. The autopilot is an important one. I've seen a lot of flight schools that try to get away without this. However, it does require a working autopilot. So, there are several things that the technically advanced aircraft can do to increase safety. They can show traffic on the multifunction display as well as on the PFD. They can show a moving map with a lot of information. It has a lot of built-in redundancy, such as an AHRS 1 and an AHRS 2. And you can lessen the workload with the use of an autopilot. Also, it can display weather on the displays, which will help the pilot with planning during a long flight. However, it may give a false sense of safety. Pilots are becoming overly reliant on technology. Can they fly when things go wrong? What happens during a GPS outage? Are they able to use their skills, or are they trusting the computer? And do they even understand the system completely? Well, there's two different types. There's experienced pilots, ones who have learned on the steam gauges and have experienced the complex systems and understand the insides and outs of them, and also have a lot of flight time that they can fall back on and a lot of experience. And then there's also those learning, such as private pilots learning how to use the system, or people learning instrument on a G1000, for example. So experienced pilots may use the standby instruments, which is a good thing if things go wrong. They're able to troubleshoot with the knowledge of the system. They don't get distracted easily. They're not confused. They don't lose control, and they're able to react quickly within their limits of their training and experience. However, pilots learning the system are unable to troubleshoot because they're not sure what they're doing. They can become easily distracted by the mass amount of data. They can become confused. They may not look outside for traffic because they're trying to take everything in. And they may have a potential loss of control, as well as slow reactions to any problems because they don't know where all the buttons are. What about a GPS outage? Well, if the pilot doesn't use radio navigation or pilotage on a regular basis, they may become easily lost. And I've seen this happen a lot with CFIs and commercial pilots because they've become over-reliant on their GPS. They also may be unable to use pilotage anymore. They can become easily distracted because they're trying to figure out how to get their GPS working again. They can also have easily lose control, and they may not look out for traffic. And if it's much worse if it happens under IFR, especially if the pilot hasn't practiced using VORs and DME in quite a while, they may have a really hard time trying to figure out where they are. And this is very bad, especially if you're flying in the mountains and there's obstacles around you. Now, what about over trusting the system? Well, an experienced pilot, they know what's going on with the system. They're able to tell quickly if the autopilot is set up wrongly. They're also able to, however, they may not be able to fly it as well with their hand because they use the autopilot so often. They will also be able to notice any issues. However, a pilot still learning the system may let the autopilot do the wrong things. They can set up the autopilot to do something, but it may be the wrong something, and they'll tend to just let the autopilot do it. This is very common, especially during instrument training. However, additionally, they may follow the wrong course. For example, the G1000 has several different CDI modes and an OBS mode, which changes what is shown on the HSI. It's the same instrument, but it's showing many different indications and courses. They also may be unable to fly once disengaging the autopilot. And I've seen this quite often. Right on a final approach, they disengage the autopilot and they start to lose control of the aircraft, even though they know exactly what to do, because they have generally done less flying and more with the autopilot. Now, what about understanding the system? Well, an experienced pilot's able to quickly navigate the system. They know where things are, they know where all the pages are. They're less distracted because they're able to glance down and see exactly what they're looking for. They're able to view a lot of information and analyze it very quickly because they know what was there and what they're looking for. They're also able to make more safe and stable IFR flights due to their proficiency and due to the extra information. They're also able to reduce their workload with the autopilot as mentioned before, and they use ADS-BN to locate traffic by looking outside. However, a pilot learning this system still may have a very slow response when trying to use this system. I've seen this, it's very common with frequency changes on the G1000. They also may be looking inside more than looking outside for traffic, which can be very dangerous. And they'll spend more time using the system and less time flying the airplane. And one of the biggest ones is they tend to try to use ADS-BN instead of looking for traffic. So is it safer or is it more dangerous for a technically advanced aircraft? Well, it depends. Experienced and skilled pilots can utilize technically advanced aircraft to increase safety, but a new pilot trying to fly a technically advanced aircraft may become much more dangerous. So the safer side of it is it's great for IFR, a lot of information. There's a large amount of useful information as well as aside from IFR stuff. There is also a lessened workload due to the autopilot. However, there is a huge danger side. There's less looking for traffic. It can be very confusing. They may be unable to fly with steam gauges anymore. And they'll become overly reliant on GPS. There will be a lack of situational awareness. There will be too much information for new pilots to handle. And there will be an increased workload because even if they have an autopilot, they may not know how to use it correctly. So it can be in the end, it can be very dangerous for new pilots, but it can be very useful and very safe for experienced pilots. However, there may be a solution for this and increasing the safety. So, based on my findings, I believe each student should begin on steam gauges and learn to fly without using a GPS. Once they learn how to fly a simple aircraft, then pilots should move on to technically advanced aircraft. However, they must still practice flying without a GPS and with other system malfunctions. Additionally, the FAA has considered requiring an endorsement to fly technically advanced aircraft like complex and high performance aircraft, and I agree with this. I mean, complex and high performance are often much simpler than flying a technically advanced aircraft anyways. Thank you for your time.